Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while. Let's jump in. Hey guys, I am back with a video that I have been trying to record for months and months and months, and life has just been a little bit hectic. So today I'm going to be revealing the results of my temperature blanket, which I started back on January the 1st, 2023. Now I have actually got 4 rows left to do, which I saved actually for this video. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to I'm going to do the last 4 rows of this, then I'm going to do the big reveal at the end. So make sure you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the pros and cons of what I did and where I went wrong. I had to undo a lot, and yeah, I'll probably put in some footage that I recorded a while back when I was doing this, just to sort of fill you in on the journey thus far. I have got a few shorts on the progress of the temperature blanket if you want to look at that, but let's get started. Now the first thing that I have noticed as I picked up the stuff to bring it in here to do is that the last line I have done here is a lake blue line, but when I checked my book, the last one that I crossed off, which was on the 27th, was the 12, which is a powder blue, and the one before that was a baby blue. So I've got the baby blue, and then I went to lake blue. So I've got to actually undo this line. I've done it wrong for some reason. So I'm going to undo that one, which means that I'm going to have 5 rows to do. So let's get started with the undo of this row. So I can actually sit here with my blanket over my legs instead of my cat blanket. Okay, so now I am done there. I am going to take this baby blue, and I've got to be careful because obviously I've cut this already, and I'm going to do the powder blue. So for those of you who don't know what a temperature blanket is, it is basically a blanket where you choose brackets for the temperature, and then you crochet a row a day that correlates to the temperature of that day. So you can choose to do the high of the day or the low of the day. I did the high of the day, and you will just crochet a row for every day of the year, and you will do that in accordance with your chart that you create. So you get to choose your colours, so you don't have to do it in a sort of a temperature thing. You don't have to do blues for cold days and reds for hot days. You can choose your own colour palette for whatever suits you. But obviously when you choose colours that kind of go together in that kind of gradient, you get a really good idea of the temperatures for the day. So that is what I decided to do. I have, the first mistake that I made was I didn't make sure that the brackets were evenly spread. So I had one where there was like, it was 3 degrees it covered, and then another where it was 4 degrees that was covered, and then another where it was at 5 degree coverage, I think. So I didn't do my brackets as well as I should have. So the brackets that I ended up with, and I did actually add in an extra bracket because we had a hotter summer than I anticipated. So -5 is 1 bracket, and that's because we don't really get hugely cold here. So 5 and below, sorry, is my first bracket. And that was silver that I chose for that colour. And I think I only actually got 7 silver days in the whole entire year here. So obviously the low of the day would have reached that, but the high of the day, it was only below 5 on 7 days of this year, which is kind of a glimpse into global warming perhaps. It definitely woke me up, this blanket. Then my next bracket was 6 to 9, and that was baby blue. Then I did 10 to 12, which was powder blue, 13 to 15, which was lake blue, 16 to 20, I had to adjust that, which was navy. 21 to 24, which was purple. 25 to 28 was magenta, and 29 was crimson. So I actually wrote down here all of the temperatures, and then I wrote the codes for the wool underneath, just in case I ran out of wool, because I only bought one of each to start with, just so that I could see what the code was and make sure that I was getting the colour right. So just in case they changed the name of it or something. And what actually happened was I needed more navy, which was the 16 to 20 bracket. And, or was it a different one? I think they might have had the navy, but it was a different one I needed, powder blue. I think it was powder blue and baby blue that I ran out of. And Hobbycraft stopped doing them. Stopped carrying the Hayfield bonus yarn. So I had to get it online. I was like really panicked, thinking, oh my goodness, what if I can't get my yarn to finish my blanket? And I think I actually did get a different ball, a different colour that was very, very similar to the baby. Maybe it was the powder. I don't know now. I know I've got a ball that I haven't started yet that is very, very slightly different to one of them, because I couldn't get the one that I needed. But I think I might have just over-egged that. I think it might have been the baby blue. I was just anticipating that it was going to be a lot colder than it ended up being at the end of the year, because we have had one of the warmest winters so far. I think it was the warmest Christmas on record since 1970 something. So there was my first sort of mistake on my blanket, was creating the chart. So just be aware when you're doing your chart, make sure that the numbers are even, not for any reason other than it paints a more accurate picture of the temperature then. So you can kind of see that those brackets are evenly spaced. So that would be my first tip. So I'm going to go and finish off this row, and then I will come back with my next mistake slash tip. Bringing you down here so that you can see my next mistake. So my next mistake was that when I was getting to the end of my row, I was forgetting to chain one before I turned, and this was just lazy forgetfulness, something that I know you need to do. So you need to, when you get to the end here, this is the last stitch that you've put together here, you need to yarn over, chain one, and then you go into not the chain stitch that you did. Let me see if I can so you go not into this chain stitch that you did, but you go into the first stitch of your work, and that way you keep it even. However, I was forgetting to do this, and instead of doing that, here Twinkle's come to join us, I was going from here and then just going straight in to the second stitch, which means that I was losing stitches with every row. And I did this for a long time and I wasn't paying attention. And what happened was my work went like this. And I went down from about 130 stitches because I decided to make this a lap blanket. So it's just literally to go over my lap while I'm watching TV. Ooh. Hello, you can't go on my blanket though. Say hello. Hi. So normally when I sit in here, I've got a blanket on my lap that she can sit on, and I haven't. Eek. So I had lost about 30 to 40 stitches and I hadn't been paying attention, and I had to undo nearly 2 months worth of work. Now, technically I should have done more than that, but I thought I'd taken it back to where it kind of made sense and I could get away with it, because it was a lot. And the problem is that each line was a line's worth of yarn for the length of the line that I'd done. So if I was going to add stitches back in, those strings of yarn weren't going to cover the stitch, and I was going to have all these joins in the middle, which I didn't want, and I didn't want to waste loads of yarn. So that is what happened, and I had to undo 2 months, and I think I've got some footage of that. If I have, I will put it in. But yeah, so that was my next mistake. So what I would say is that regardless of your level of proficiency with crochet, because I would say that I'm not an expert by any means, but I know what I'm doing. You need 2 of these, and you need to put them in your last stitch to make sure that you are chaining one and turning your work at the end of each row. And that is what I did. And I did that for probably a few months until I kind of got it in my head. And I haven't used it since, and I've been okay, but definitely should have started with a stitch marker in the last and first stitch of my work. That would have made it better. So I do still have a kink in my work, which I will show you when I show you the whole thing, which has upset me a little bit because I had planned to do a edging around the whole blanket to finish it off, but I'm not going to be able to do that because of the wiggle. Now, because it's going to be sat in half most of the time because it's very long, 365 rows long, I am going to fold it in half to have it on my lap, so it's not going to matter, you're not going to see it, but yeah, I don't really want to do the edging because it's just reminding me of how much I messed up, which is sad to me, but it is something that for the future I will know this is going to be perfect for my lap blanket, so I'm absolutely fine with that. I have just done, where have we done? Baby row. So I've got 2 more rows to do. They're both 11 degrees, which means I'm going back to the powder blue. So I will finish those 2 rows off, and then I will give you an overview of the full blanket and give you a couple more tips for what I did right/wrong on my blanket. I'm done. I did it. I am actually super proud of myself for getting through this entire blanket, because there was a point in the middle of the year where I was like, I've got so far behind with this. I was very much, I'm just going to do 1 row a day to keep it 1 row a day, and that's fine. And then there were days where I was having to get this book out and go to past temperatures and going back 2 weeks to write down the temperatures because I hadn't got it. And in all honesty, I was about 2 months behind at some point in November. So this is the blanket. So each month, and this is something that I intentionally chose to do, is that between each month I've done 2 rows of white. So that is something that you might want to consider, is breaking up your months like that, so that then you can really see the different temperatures in the months. So that is it. I will put in a video clip of the full thing laid flat. That was a really good thing to do, to do that white line. Now, the other thing that I did differently to some people is I decided to do single crochet, but only in the back stitch, so it gives this ribbed kind of effect. I thought it was pretty good for a blanket because obviously it creates these gaps, and wherever there is gaps you can trap heat in, so that I thought was a good idea for the blanket itself. However, what it does is if you've got 1 day of colour rather than 2, if I stretch that out, you can see the different colours, like that navy that's in the middle there isn't really visible when you've got that line, but the other side of the blanket, it's really visible. So I've actually got 2 blankets in one. So depending on what you want to do, this is kind of giving you one view of the year, and then the other side is giving you a different view of the year. So it's up to you. That's just something to consider when you're choosing the stitch that you do. If you're going to do that ribbed kind of stitch, you're only kind of getting half the story. but also it's meant that my blanket is quite stretchy. But also what has happened is that I have likely used less yarn because I haven't been going through two yarns to pull my hook through. So it's saving a little bit of yarn each time. So I've probably not used as much yarn. Now I have gone through every now and then and been cutting off these bits where I've sort of fed the yarn through. There is still a lot for me to do, so that is something that I've got to go back and do. But other than that, my blanket is done. So here is the blanket in all its glory, all the way up there. Let's have a little walk down and see more closely. So you have got January there up to here. This is the white line. February, then March, then April, May, June, July, then we've got August, September, October, November, and that's December. So you can see that we had some cold days here. These are the silvers, but they are not all together. There was a little cold spell there and then a couple of days. So that's about 5. And then if you come back to the other end of the year where it was cold, we only had a couple of days, like 1, 2, 3 days there of silver. So it has not been very cold. It has been fairly warm, as you can see, and I had to add in the crimson because we went over. So I've got a crimson day there and then another crimson day there. And then we sat quite high. There's pink day in there. And I think there's crimson there actually. There you go, a crimson day. You can see where I went wrong. And we've come in on both sides quite a lot for some reason. Don't know. That happened after I'd undone. I think I undid these. So yeah, not really sure how that happened, but it is what it is. And like I say, it's going to be sat in half because I am not this long and neither's my lap. So I shall be folding it in half to have it on my lap anyway. So it's not really going to be noticeable. But I'm just really chuffed, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, at some point, somewhere, embroider or cross-stitch something that says 2023 so I can just sew it onto the blanket so I know which year it is, because otherwise I will forget, because I am going to get old and my mind is going to go. So there is my 2023 temperature blanket. And I am super proud of the fact that I completed it, even though it went a bit wonky in the middle and I had to undo a load and redo it, even though it's still a little bit wonky. I'm really proud of it, and now I have got a nice, almost cat hair free blanket to put on myself and keep nice. It's not exactly the heirloom blanket that I'd like to pass on to my daughter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some research this year and decide on a granny square blanket. So 12 granny squares, each representing a month. The thing is, obviously, with each month, there is 31 days in some, 30 days in another, 28 days in February next year. So there's going to be a different number of rows. So I've got to work out what I'm going to do in respect to that to make sure that it's even, so when I sew it together it looks good. But that's what I would like to do, then be able to give that to my daughter as her kind of heirloom blanket that she can have. This is just going to be my snuggle blanket on the sofa when the cat is not on my lap. So that is going to be it for this first video of 2024. I am hoping fingers crossed, planning more videos this year. So if you are interested in crafting, I will be doing a wrap up of Scentsy coming up, just giving you my thoughts, feelings, where I am with it, what's going on with that, and also probably going to be sharing with you some of my 2024 goals, things that I have let go by the wayside in 2023 that really need to come back into focus. So I'm going to do a video on that, and that will all be coming up soon. So if you are not yet subscribed, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. I always respond to my comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.